I just wanted to check in after week one of the course to make sure that we're clear on the basics and talk a little bit about the material, looking ahead a little bit to the midterm as well. As you go through course, you'll see, as you know, that there are videos for every week, general videos on the material. I would watch those videos if I were you, because they give you some context and they give you a sense of what I'm emphasizing and why the material is there. And looking ahead to the midterm and final, sort of, I'll be taking it for granted that you have a sense of what these texts are about and why we're reading them for this course. So I would watch the videos. Um, when we do each reading, obviously there is a discussion. Just to be clear, you have to post at least twice. And the first post should be, or one post should be, your substantive comment on the week's materials, or the day's materials, excuse me. And the other one should be a reply to someone else. So for every discussion board, you need to post at least twice. I hope that that's clear. So far, we have looked at the basics of Kantianism and basics of utilitarianism. I've given you this, and you'll see why. Several, more than one reason I've given you this material from Kant and Mill. You'll see this will become quite important in week 4 when we read Hans Jonas' Technology and Responsibility, the New Task of Ethics. You'll see why. Because basically, Jonas will be questioning the adequacy of approaches to morality like Kantianism and utilitarianism. I think that what you should do is watch the thematic course overview video to get a sense of that, which I explain it. So where are we so far? We have looked at 2 approaches to moral philosophy, what I'm calling moral decision-making frameworks. First is Kantianism, and Kantianism, for us at least, boils down to the categorical imperatives. Which are basically 2 rules to follow in any ethical situation, any situation whatsoever. The first is that basically your rule of action, whatever you do, you can be thought of as following some sort of rule in doing it. And the basics of this imperative is that that rule, that implicit rule really, should be universalizable. Sorry, I'm having trouble spelling. Meaning that rule should be something that you feel comfortable with everyone following. So that whatever it is you do, you should feel comfortable with everyone doing the same thing. And it is something to apply to a moral situation, ethical situation, to ensure that what you're doing is actually ethical. Second one, second categorical imperative. That's having to do with persons, treat them as ends in themselves, never as mere means to one of your ends. So all persons must be treated. It's very difficult to say what it means to treat a person as an end in themselves. It's easier to identify when they're being used as a mere means. So one of the versions of it, or paraphrase of it, is never use a person as a means. Never treat a person like a thing. might say. So we come out of Kantianism with basic rules, and we also come out of utilitarianism with a basic rule. Always do that which maximizes the total happiness or welfare of those whose interests are at stake and minimizes their own happiness. It's a very different approach from Kantianism. Obviously, Kantianism basically gives you rules of action to always follow, whereas utilitarianism, as a form of consequentialism, says that what is good or what should be done in any particular situation depends upon the anticipated results. In any case, we come out with these ideas, approaches, what I'm calling decision making frameworks. And the idea of the next 2 weeks with what would you call them? Autopilot, self driving cars, and the Facebook experiment, which is something kind of ancient history by now, but still an interesting event in the history of social media. The idea now is, just to look at those issues in themselves, obviously, look at them as ethical issues, or to look at what ethical questions are raised by generally self-driving vehicles or autopilot, but also the isolated event of the Facebook experiment. To look at the thing as a general issues or general topics in digital ethics, but also to maybe apply what we have gleaned from Kant and utilitarianism. That is, how would those particular ethical approaches deal with the issues that are raised by these topics? And that is kind of like the idea is that you'll be able to do that. Obviously, autopilot has some utilitarian features or features that are amenable to utilitarian treatment. It also has features that are amenable to a Kantian treatment. I'm really thinking of the kind of questions, problems that emerge in programming autopilot in situations in which choices need to be made between individuals and their lives or welfare. Facebook experiment obviously was done, I think, with good intentions by Facebook and academics who were working with Facebook to do a study on the effects of basically social contagion, the way that moods or feelings or positive and negative thoughts and attitudes can be spread through social media. It's meant to add to science and have utilitarian benefits. Whether it did or not is a question. But there's also some obvious Kantian second categorical issues involved in subjecting people to a psychological experiment without their consent. So the idea of the next 2 weeks is really to look at these issues just generally, but also to go through the exercise of applying these ethical decision-making frameworks to them. And if you have an idea of where we're going with the course, which you should, from viewing the thematic course overview video, you see that we come to a point in digital ethics or ethics in digital technology where it's not quite clear that approaches like Kantianism and utilitarianism are adequate to the task.